The grand ceremonial hall of the Valtorian Imperial Palace gleamed with bioluminescent crystals, casting an ethereal glow across the polished obsidian floors. Dr. Hannah Kim moved her cleaning apparatus across the vast expanse with practiced efficiency, her movements so routine that the alien courtiers barely registered her presence. She was invisible to them, just another human, small and fragile-looking compared to the towering Voltorians who strode past her without a second glance. Their reptilian forms, some reaching 7 feet in height, moved with the confidence of a species that had ruled the galaxy for 10,000 years. To them, she was simply the cleaning woman, a curiosity from that violent planet called Earth, nothing more. Hannah squeezed a mop and watched the purple cleaning solution swirl in the bucket. She had been doing this for 8 months now. 8 months of scrubbing floors, polishing windows, and emptying waste containers in the most powerful building in the known universe. The work was mindless, repetitive, and beneath her qualifications. But that was exactly the point. Nobody paid attention to the cleaners. At 32 years old, Hannah held 2 doctorate degrees, one in emergency medicine and another in xenobiology. She had spent 5 years as a combat medic in Earth's peacekeeping forces, treating wounds that would have killed lesser doctors to even look at. She had seen things, done things, survived things that would give most people nightmares for life. But here, in this glittering palace, she was just a human maid. The Voltorians didn't know that she was part of Earth's diplomatic security detail. They didn't know that her eyes and ears were always open, always watching for threats to the fragile peace between their species and hers. They certainly didn't know that she could recite the biological weak points of 17 different alien species from memory, or that she could perform emergency surgery with nothing but a knife and determination if needed. 300 years had passed since humanity first made contact with the galactic hegemony. 3 centuries of proving themselves, of fighting for respect, of clawing their way up from primitive deathworlders to legitimate members of galactic society. And still, aliens like these looked at humans and saw lucky survivors rather than masters of adaptation. Just last week, she had overheard the palace's chief physician, Torvix, mocking human medicine. Barbaric reliance on chemical compounds and manual intervention, he had said with a dismissive wave of his clawed hand. It's a wonder they survived long enough to reach the stars. Hannah had bitten her tongue and kept mopping. Getting into arguments wouldn't help her mission. Better to stay quiet, stay invisible, and do her job. The afternoon reception was in full swing now. Emperor Thrall's Eyes III held court in the center of the great hall, his massive form draped in robes that shimmered with embedded technology. Dignitaries from a dozen worlds had gathered to celebrate the anniversary of the Grand Peace Treaty, the agreement that had ended the last major war and established the current era of cooperation. Hannah positioned herself near the western colonnade, close enough to observe but far enough to remain unnoticed. This was always the best spot during major events. She could see everything while appearing to focus solely on her cleaning duties. The ceremonial incense burned in tall braziers around the hall, filling the air with sweet, spicy smoke. It was an ancient Valtorian tradition, one that preceded every important diplomatic function. The scent was supposed to promote harmony and clear thinking, or so the palace literature claimed. But something was wrong with it today. Hannah's nose wrinkled slightly. The smell wasn't quite right. There was an undertone to it, something that didn't match the usual aromatic profile. It was subtle, probably too subtle for the Voltorians to notice. Their sense of smell had evolved to detect complex pheromones and sophisticated molecular structures. They had essentially engineered their own senses to ignore simple, basic compounds. But Hannah was human. Her nose was primitive by galactic standards, which meant it could still detect things that their advanced biology filtered out as irrelevant. She sniffed again, more carefully this time. There was a faint sweetness beneath the spice, like bitter almonds mixed with something floral. Her medical training kicked in immediately, running through possibilities. That combination was familiar, dangerous. Before she could process the thought further, Emperor Thrall's eyes stumbled. It was subtle at first. The massive monarch caught himself on the arm of his throne, one clawed hand pressing against his chest. Around the hall, conversations continued. Most of the dignitaries hadn't even noticed yet. They assumed it was just a momentary loss of balance, perhaps even a ceremonial gesture they didn't understand. But Hannah saw the signs. The Emperor's scales were changing color, shifting from their usual deep emerald green to a grayish hue. His breathing had become rapid and shallow. His pupils were dilating at different rates, a clear sign of neurological distress in Valtorian physiology. She took a step forward, then stopped herself. She was a cleaner. What would a cleaner know about medical emergencies? Getting involved would blow her cover, would raise questions she couldn't answer without compromising her entire mission. Then Emperor Thrall's eyes collapsed. The sound of his body hitting the floor was like thunder. The hall erupted into chaos. Dignitaries screamed. Guards rushed forward from every direction, their weapons drawn, and their sensors sweeping for threats. The palace's automated security systems activated, bathing everything in harsh red emergency lighting. Hannah didn't think. She just moved. Her legs carried her forward through the panicking crowd, her medical training overriding every other consideration. She had spent too many years running toward danger, toward wounded soldiers and dying patients. You couldn't turn that off, couldn't suppress that instinct even when logic said you should. She pushed past a cluster of terrified diplomats, her small human form slipping through gaps that the larger aliens couldn't navigate. She could see the Emperor now, lying on his back with his bodyguards forming a protective circle around him. His body was jerking with tremors. His breathing had almost stopped. He was dying. "Move! Let me through." Hannah's voice came out louder than she intended, shrill with urgency. A massive armor hand slammed into her chest, stopping her cold. Captain Dreth, commander of the Imperial Guard, loomed over her like a living wall. His reptilian features were twisted with mixture of rage and fear. "Stand back, human. This is a restricted." "I'm a medic. Calm down." The words burst out of her before she could stop them. Captain Dreth's grip tightened on Hannah's shoulder, his claws digging into her uniform. "You are cleaner. Step away from the Emperor, or I will throw you out of this hall." Hannah struggled against his hold, watching helplessly as the palace physicians rushed to the Emperor's side. They moved with practiced efficiency, pulling out devices that hummed and glowed with advanced technology. But she could see the confusion on their faces even from a distance. The lead physician, Torvix, knelt beside the Emperor with his primary scanner extended. The device hummed and chirped, projecting a three-dimensional model of the Emperor's internal systems. Hannah could see it from where Dreth had deposited her at the edge of the crowd. Every organ, every major blood vessel, every neural pathway was displayed in perfect detail and bright holographic colors, all showing normal function. "This makes no sense," Torvix muttered, his voice carrying in the suddenly quiet hall. He adjusted the scanner settings, running it over the Emperor's body again. There is no pathogen, no toxin signature, no physical trauma. Everything reads as completely normal. But it wasn't normal. Hannah could see that clearly. The Emperor's scales had turned an ugly gray-blue color now, and his chest barely moved with each breath. That sweet smell in the air had grown stronger. She knew that smell. She had encountered it once before during a joint training exercise with Valtorian medical personnel. One of the human instructors had created a theoretical poison as a teaching demonstration. It was designed to be simple, basic, almost primitive in its composition. The kind of thing that advanced alien scanners would completely miss because they were calibrated to look for sophisticated threats. Terran nightshade derivative, modified for Valtorian biology. The poison was brilliant in its simplicity. It mimicked natural metabolic compounds, hiding in plain sight while it shut down the victim's nervous system. Advanced scanners dismissed it as background noise, environmental contamination, nothing worth flagging. The Valtorians had evolved beyond such primitive dangers. Their technology was built to catch complex molecular weapons, genetic plagues, nanotech assassins. Not a simple plant-based toxin that humans have been using for thousands of years. Hannah did quick calculations in her head. Based on the Emperor's size and how fast his symptoms were progressing, he had maybe 2 minutes left before total respiratory failure. Maybe 3 if he was lucky. She couldn't wait anymore. Hannah twisted out of Dreth's loosened grip and ran. This time she didn't try to explain or ask permission. She simply ran with the full authority of someone who knew exactly what needed to be done. "Stop that human." Dreth's voice boomed across the hall. Two guards moved to block her path. Hannah dropped low, using the still wet floor to her advantage. She slid between their legs like she was stealing home base, popping up on the other side before they could react. Years of combat training had taught her how to move fast and dirty when speed mattered more than dignity. She burst through the ring of physicians and dropped to her knees beside the Emperor. "He's been poisoned," she shouted, her hands already checking his pulse points. Weak and thready, exactly what she feared. Synthetic neurotoxin. You have maybe 90 seconds left. Torvix turned to her, with pure contempt on his face. "Impossible. Our scanners would have detected any. Your scanners are looking for the wrong things." Hannah pressed her fingers against the Emperor's secondary heart, feeling for the backup rhythm that kept Volturians alive in emergencies. It was there, but fading fast. The toxin is simple, carbon-based. It mimics natural compounds. Your technology is too advanced to see it. Guards, remove this insane human immediately. Torvik stood up, gesturing angrily. Captain Dress stepped forward, reaching for Hannah again, but a new voice cut through the chaos. "Wait!" Princess Velana pushed through the crowd. The Emperor's eldest daughter was unmistakable with her golden scales that marked her as royal blood. She had been educated on Earth for 2 years, one of the first Waltorians to really study human culture and science. She understood humans better than most of her people. "Let her try," Velana said quietly, but with absolute authority. "Your Highness, this is complete madness." Torvix protested, his voice rising. "She is a cleaning servant. She has no medical credentials, no training, no. My father is dying right now, and your 1,000,000 credit scanners are showing nothing." Velana's voice was cold as ice. "If the human is wrong, we lose nothing because he will die anyway. If she is right and we stop her, we murdered him ourselves." The logic was brutal but undeniable. Torvix opened his mouth to argue, then closed it again. Hannah didn't waste the opportunity. "I need hydrogen peroxide," activated charcoal, and something to make him vomit. Right now. The physician stared at her like she had just suggested setting the Emperor on fire. "Those are poisons," one of them gasped, his scales turning pale with shock. "Not in the right doses. Not for what I need to do." Hannah looked up at Velana. "Your Highness, I need your authority. Every second we waste is a second closer to your father's death." Velana's eyes met hers for a long moment. Hannah could see the princess weighing an impossible choice. Trust a human cleaner with the Emperor's life, or watch him die while doing nothing. Get her everything she asks for, Velana ordered. Now! The medical staff scrambled to obey, though their movements were slow and reluctant. Hannah turned her full attention to the Emperor, her hands moving with the practiced efficiency of someone who had done emergency medicine in war zones. She tilted his head back, clearing his airway. His breathing was almost gone now. Maybe 60 seconds left. "I also need a manual cardiac support kit, the kind used before automated systems were invented." "Manual?" Torvix looked horrified. "We haven't used manual intervention in 300 years. It's barbaric. It's effective." Hannah's voice had taken on the sharp, commanding tone of a battlefield medic. "Your automated systems won't account for the metabolic changes caused by the toxin. I need to feel his response with my own hands and adjust in real time. Either help me or get out of my way." A young physician, his name tag read Saren, rushed forward with a medical kit. "I have the compounds you requested, Dr. Kim. But how did you know there was a toxin?" So someone had figured out who she really was. That would be a problem later. Right now, she had more important things to worry about. "I smelled it," Hannah said simply, already measuring out precise doses of each compound. "Human noses are primitive. We can detect simple chemical signatures that your advanced senses filter out as irrelevant." She drew hydrogen peroxide into a syringe, calculating the dose for a Valtorian of the Emperor's mass and current condition. Too little, and it wouldn't work. Too much, and she would kill him herself. "This is absolute insanity," Torvix breathed, watching her work. "Your Highness, I must formally protest this." "Noted and overruled," Velana said sharply. "Continue, Dr. Kim." Hannah found the injection point over the Emperor's secondary heart, the organ that served as a backup respiratory pump in Volturians. The hydrogen peroxide would react with the toxin's molecular structure, breaking it down into less harmful components. But the reaction would be violent. The patient's body would fight back hard. "Everyone stand back," Hannah warned, the syringe poised over the Emperor's chest. "This is going to look very bad before it looks better." She pushed the plunger down. The Emperor's body convulsed violently. Green blood mixed with foam erupted from his mouth. His limbs thrashed, striking the floor with enough force to crack the polished stone. Around the room, several physicians cried out in horror. "You're killing him!" Torvix lunged forward, but Captain Dreth grabbed him and held him back. "Let her finish," the guard captain growled, his eyes fixed on Hannah's face. Hannah was already preparing the next injection. Activated charcoal suspended in saline solution, modified for Valtorian blood chemistry. She had studied this in theory, but never done it in practice. If her calculations were even slightly wrong, the Emperor would die. No pressure at all. The Imperial Medical Wing was chaos. Emperor Thrall's eyes 3 had been moved to the most secure treatment room in the palace, surrounded by enough monitoring equipment to run a small starship. Hannah stood to one side, her cleaning uniform still stained with the Emperor's blood, while Valtorian physicians buzzed around their patient like agitated insects. She had been trying to leave for the past 20 minutes. Each time she moved toward the door, someone stopped her with another question. How did you know the dosage ratios? What made you choose manual compressions over automated cardiac support? Where did you learn Valtorian emergency physiology? Hannah answered each question with as much patience as she could manage, but her mind was elsewhere. She kept thinking about the ceremonial incense, about the poison's delivery method, about the fact that someone had specifically designed this toxin to fool Valtorian scanners while using Earth-based compounds. This wasn't a random attack. This was planned by someone who understood both human and Valtorian biology at an expert level. Dr. Kim. Hannah turned to find Captain Dreth, standing behind her. The massive guard captain had removed his helmet, revealing scarred features that told stories of a long military career. "Captain, I owe you an apology," Dreth said stiffly, as if the words were physically painful to speak. "I underestimated you. That mistake almost cost the Emperor his life." "You were doing your job," Hannah replied, keeping her voice neutral. "I was a potential threat in a crisis situation. No apology needed." "Maybe not needed, but given anyway." Dreth's eyes narrowed. "But now I have questions. How does a cleaning staff member have advanced medical knowledge? And more importantly, how did you recognize a poison that our chief physician missed completely?" There it was, the interrogation she had been expecting. "I'm a doctor," Hannah said simply. "Emergency medicine and xenobiology. I worked cleaning jobs to pay for my research while studying Valtorian physiology." The lie came smoothly. She had practiced it many times. "When I saw the Emperor collapse, my medical training took over." A doctor working as a cleaner. Dreth's tone made it clear he didn't believe a single word. Very convenient. "Captain Dreth, is Dr. Kim under arrest?" Princess Velana's voice interrupted them. She approached with her usual grace, though Hannah could see stress in the tight set of her jaw. "Because if not, I would like to speak with her privately." Dreth hesitated, clearly torn between suspicion and respect for royal authority. Finally, he bowed his head. "As you wish, Your Highness. But I will need to question Dr. Kim again soon. We have security protocols." "Of course. I wouldn't dream of interfering with your investigation." Velana's smile was diplomatic, but firm. She gestured for Hannah to follow her. They walked in silence through the medical wing's corridors until they reached a small observation room. Velana sealed the door behind them and activated a privacy field. A shimmer of energy surrounded them that would block any surveillance devices. "You can drop the act now," the princess said quietly. "I know who you really are." Hannah's muscles tensed automatically. "Your Highness, I don't understand what—" "You're part of Earth's diplomatic security, intelligence gathering and threat assessment." Velana held up a hand before Hannah could protest. "Don't bother denying it. I spent 2 years at Oxford. I learned how your intelligence services operate. The question is, did you know about the assassination attempt? No. Hannah's answer was immediate and honest. If I had any warning, I would have alerted your security right away. Whatever you think about Earth's intentions, we have no interest in destabilizing the hegemony. A stable empire benefits everyone. Velana studied her face for a long moment, then nodded slowly. I believe you, which means we have a bigger problem. That poison was a hybrid design. Terran nightshade as a base, but modified with Valtorian biochemical accelerants. Whoever created it has deep knowledge of both our species. I noticed that too. Hannah's mind was already working through possibilities. The delivery method was also sophisticated. The ceremonial incense is prepared by temple priests under strict security. Getting access to it would require either inside help or extraordinary planning. Or both. Velana pulled up a holographic display from her wrist device. I've been reviewing security footage from the preparation chambers. Look at this. The image showed a Valtorian in temple robes mixing compounds in a sacred preparation room. Hannah leaned closer, studying the figure's movements carefully. There, she pointed. See how he's measuring that component? He's using precision tools instead of the traditional eyeball method. He's being exact to an unusual degree for a religious ceremony. Exactly. And here's the interesting part. Velana zoomed in on the figure's face. That's High Physician Torvix. Hannah felt her blood run cold. The same Torvix who tried so hard to stop me from treating the Emperor? The very same. He's been the palace's chief physician for 15 years. Perfect reputation. Decades of loyal service. He also, Velana paused meaningfully, spent 3 years studying on Earth 7 years ago. Advanced biochemistry at Seoul National University. Hannah wanted to curse, but held it back. So he has the knowledge to create a hybrid poison. He has access to the ceremonial preparations. And he tried to prevent treatment that would save the Emperor. The question is why, Velana said grimly. Why would Torvix want my father dead? Hannah thought about all the comments she had overheard over the past 8 months. The dismissive attitudes toward human medicine. The resentment whenever Earth's growing influence was mentioned. The fear in some voices when discussing how human methods were proving effective. Fear, she said quietly. Fear that humans and our primitive methods might make traditional Valtorian practices obsolete. Your people have relied on advanced technology for thousands of years. We show up with our hands-on approaches and start getting results. For someone like Torvix, whose entire identity is built on being the Empire's greatest physician, that's terrifying. We represent a threat to his relevance. Velana finished the thought. And what better way to prove human methods are dangerous than to poison the Emperor with a human toxin, than watch humans fail to save him? Except I actually did save him. Hannah felt anger rising in her chest. How many people could have died because of his pride? An alert chimed on Velana's wrist device. The princess looked at it, and her scales paled visibly. 3 of my father's personal guards are showing similar symptoms. They were standing in the ceremonial hall, near the incense. Lower exposure, but they've been breathing the poison for over an hour now. Hannah was already moving toward the door before Velana finished speaking. We need to reach them immediately. If they've been suffering this long, their condition will be much worse than your father's was. They ran through the palace corridors. Velana's royal status cleared a path through the crowds of worried courtiers and officials. The guard barracks medical bay was in complete chaos when they arrived. 3 massive Valtorian soldiers were writhing on examination tables, while physicians frantically ran their scanners over them. And standing in the center of it all was Torvix. His expression showed theatrical concern, but his hands remained suspiciously still. He wasn't actually helping. Your Highness, Dr. Kim. Young physician Saren rushed over to them, relief flooding his face. Thank the stars you're here. We can't figure out what's wrong with them. The scanners show nothing abnormal, but they're clearly dying. Same poison, diluted exposure through the incense smoke. Hannah said immediately. She moved toward the supply cabinets. I need hydrogen peroxide, activated charcoal, and emetics. ×3. Quickly. Absolutely not. Torvik stepped between Hannah and the patients, blocking her path. These soldiers require proper medical treatment, not human folk remedies. I will not allow you to experiment on them like laboratory animals. They'll die in the next 8 minutes without treatment. Hannah said flatly, meeting his eyes. Step aside. I am the chief physician of this palace, and I will not permit. You're also the one who prepared today's ceremonial incense. Velana's voice cut through his words like a blade. Aren't you Torvik's? The room went completely silent. Every physician, every guard, every medical technician stopped what they were doing and stared. Torvik's expression shifted in an instant, from outrage to cold calculation. Your Highness, I don't know what you're suggesting, but I'm not suggesting anything. I'm stating facts. Velana pulled up security footage on the room's main display screen. This is you, adding measured compounds to today's incense. Compounds that don't appear in the traditional recipe. Torvik's glanced toward the exits. Guards were already moving to block them, responding to some silent signal from Princess. This is a misunderstanding. That was simply a new aromatic enhancement. Then you won't mind if we analyze the residual samples? Velana's tone was ice cold. Torvik's composure finally cracked. His hand moved fast, pulling a small device from his medical bag. Hannah recognized it instantly. An aerosol disperser. Everyone down, she shouted. But Torvik's was faster. He triggered the device. Hannah woke to the steady beep of medical monitors and the antiseptic smell of a hospital room. For a moment, she thought she was back on Earth, back in a military medical facility where she had recovered from her own combat injuries years ago. Then her eyes focused on the ceiling. Crystalline panels refracted light in distinctly non-human patterns, and memory came flooding back. The poison, the medical bay, Torvik's attempted escape. She tried to sit up and immediately regretted it. Every muscle in her body felt like it had been wrung out and left to dry. A gentle hand pressed her back down against the bed. Easy, said a familiar voice. Saren, the young Valtorian physician, stood beside her bed. He looked exhausted but alive. You've been unconscious for 18 hours. Your body fought off enough concentrated neurotoxin to kill 3 adult Valtorians. The others... Hannah's voice came out as a weak croak. All alive, thanks to you. Princess Velana recovered after 6 hours. The guards took longer, but they're stable now. The medical staff... Saren's expression darkened. 2 are still in critical condition, but they will survive. And Torvik's... In maximum security detention, Captain Dress subdued him, though not before the physician managed to release a second dose of poison. You saved everyone by preparing those antidotes so quickly. Saren paused, studying her face. Though I must ask, how did you keep functioning while poisoning yourself? By all medical logic, you should have collapsed within 30 seconds of exposure. Hannah managed a weak smile. Deaf world of biology. We humans are annoyingly hard to kill. Our bodies are used to fighting off toxins constantly. We evolved on a planet that tried to poison us every single day. Compared to some of Earth's natural venoms, this was... She stopped, remembering who had created the poison. Actually, it was pretty terrible. The door slid open and Princess Velana entered, accompanied by Captain Dreth. The princess looked fully recovered, her scales gleaming with their usual golden shine. Dreth carried a data tablet and wore an expression that suggested he had not slept at all. Dr. Kim, Velana said warmly, it's good to see you awake. How do you feel? Like I was poisoned and then stayed awake long enough to save 7 people while poisoned. Hannah accepted Saren's help to sit up properly this time. Your Highness, what happened after I passed out? Velana pulled up a chair beside the bed. Captain Dreth arrested Torvik's, who is now in the highest security cell we have. We've begun a full investigation into his activities over the past several years. What we discovered is deeply disturbing. Dreth activated his data tablet, projecting a holographic display above Hannah's bed. It showed a complex web of connections. Names, dates, chemical formulas, and financial transactions all linked together in an intricate pattern. Torvik's didn't work alone, the guard captain said grimly. We've identified at least 3 other Valtorian physicians and 2 temple priests who were part of the conspiracy. They called themselves a Purist Circle, a group dedicated to preserving traditional Valtorian medical practices and preventing human influence from contaminating our culture. Hannah studied the display carefully. The assassination was designed to accomplish multiple goals at once. Kill the Emperor, who has been pushing for closer cooperation with Earth. Frame human medicine by using Earth-based compounds. Create enough chaos to justify restricting human access to Valtorian institutions. Exactly correct, Valana confirmed. Torvix underestimated two critical things. First, that you would be present and capable of intervening. Second, that human diagnostic methods could detect a poison specifically engineered to fool our scanners. There's more, Dref continued, manipulating the display to show new information. We traced the source of the Terran nightshade. It came from a restricted botanical research facility on Earth. It was stolen 3 months ago. The theft was reported but never solved. We're now coordinating with Earth intelligence to determine if there are additional conspirators on your homeworld. Hannah felt a chill run down her spine. If the conspiracy extended to Earth, it meant humans were working with Valtorian extremists to undermine the Alliance. That was potentially catastrophic for human-alien relations across the entire galaxy. The Emperor wishes to see you, Valana said gently. When you're strong enough, of course. He wants to thank you personally for saving his life. And to apologize, Dreth added gruffly. We all owe you apologies. The way you were treated, the assumptions we made about humans and your capabilities, it was inexcusable and nearly cost us everything. You worked with the information you had, Hannah said diplomatically, though internally, she admitted to feeling a small surge of satisfaction. Maybe now the Voltorians would think twice before dismissing human capabilities as primitive. Saren cleared his throat nervously. Dr. Kim, if I may ask a question. You mentioned during the crisis that human medicine is violent compared to ours. Could you explain what you meant by that? Hannah considered how best to phrase her answer. Your species never had to develop aggressive medical interventions because you evolved on a relatively peaceful world. Your diseases were predictable. Your injuries were manageable with technology. Humans evolved on a planet that was constantly trying to kill us in creative ways. Venomous creatures, deadly plants, extreme temperatures, natural disasters. Our medicine reflects that constant struggle. We learned to fight back hard and fast because gentle methods simply didn't work when death was coming in minutes. She gestured at the medical equipment surrounding them. Your scanners are incredibly sophisticated, but they look for sophisticated threats. My ancestors couldn't afford sophistication. If you were poisoned, you had minutes to force the toxin out of your system by any means necessary. Manual chest compressions, induced vomiting, chemical purges. It looks barbaric to your eyes, but it kept us alive long enough to eventually develop gentler methods. And now, Valana said thoughtfully, that so-called barbaric knowledge saved the Empire's leader and exposed a dangerous conspiracy. There's an important lesson in that for all of us. A soft chime interrupted the conversation. Dreth checked his tablet, and his expression darkened. We have a situation developing. One of the Purist Circle members, a physician named Keltar, was in the palace during the mass arrests. We believe he's fled to the lower city, and may be planning another attack. Hannah swung her legs off the bed, ignoring the immediate protest from her aching muscles. Then we need to find him before he hurts anyone else. Absolutely not, Valana said firmly. You barely survived the last exposure. You need at least another day of recovery before. Your Highness, with respect, I'm the one who knows how this poison works better than anyone. I'm the one who can spot the early signs if he tries to use it again. Hannah stood up, swaying slightly but remaining upright through sheer determination. Besides, I'm already exposed. My body has developed antibodies now. If there's another poison incident, I'm your best chance for treating victims quickly and effectively. Dreth and Valana exchanged meaningful glances. Saren looked like he wanted to protest, but couldn't find a strong enough medical argument to stop her. Very well, Valana said finally, but you're not going alone under any circumstances. Captain Dreth, assemble your best security team. Dr. Kim, please try not to make me regret this decision. 20 minutes later, Hannah found herself in the back of an armored transport vehicle. She wore borrowed tactical gear that had been hastily modified for her smaller human frame. Dreth sat across from her, along with 4 elite guards who eyed her with a mixture of respect and curiosity. They were heading into the Twilight District, a section of the lower city where the architecture was ancient and crumbling, and the surveillance systems had more blind spots than coverage. Keltar has family connections in this district, Dreth explained as the transport rumbled through narrow streets. We've tracked his last known communication to a medical clinic near the old market sector. If he's preparing another attack, that's where he'll be. Hannah checked the medical kit she'd been given. It contained enough antidote compounds to treat a dozen patients, assuming she could reach them in time. She tried not to think about what would happen if Keltar had prepared something worse than the ceremonial incense poison. The transport slowed to a stop. Through the armored windows, Hannah could see a run-down building with a faded medical symbol painted on its wall. The streets were eerily empty for this time of day. "Too quiet," one of the guards muttered. Dretha's scanner beeped. "I'm detecting trace amounts of the same chemical compounds used in the palace attack. He's definitely been here recently." They exited the transport in tactical formation, with Hannah protected in the center of the group. The clinic's front door hung open, swinging slightly in the breeze. Inside, everything was dark and silent. "Stay close," Dreth whispered to Hannah. "If anything happens, you run back to the transport." "Understood." Hannah nodded, though they both knew she wouldn't actually run if people needed medical help. They entered the clinic carefully. The interior was a mess. Medical supplies were scattered everywhere. Equipment had been smashed. And in the center of the main treatment room stood Keltar. He was younger than Hannah expected, maybe 40 in Valtorian years. His scales were pale green and his eyes burned with fanatic intensity. In his hands, he held a large aerosol device. "Stay back," Keltar shouted. "I will release this poison cloud and kill everyone in a 6-block radius." Dreth raised his weapon. "Put down the device. There's nowhere to run." "I'm not running. I'm making a statement." Keltar's voice shook with emotion. "The humans are contaminating everything we built. Their primitive methods, their violent medicine, their entire existence threatens our way of life. Better to die than to watch our civilization be destroyed by Deathworlders." Hannah stepped forward, ignoring Dretha's warning hand on her shoulder. "Keltar," she said calmly, "I understand you're afraid." "I understand you're afraid," Hannah said calmly, taking another careful step forward. "Change is terrifying, especially when it threatens everything you built your identity around." Keltar's hand trembled on the aerosol device. "You don't understand anything. Human, you come to our world with your barbaric methods, and suddenly everyone treats you like heroes. Do you know how many years I spent perfecting my skills? How many lives I saved using proper Valtorian medicine? And now it means nothing because some Deathworlder can push on a chest and be called a miracle worker." "You're right," Hannah said, and she meant it. "It's not fair. You dedicated your whole life to healing, and now people are questioning everything you know. That must hurt terribly." Keltar blinked, clearly not expecting agreement. His grip on the device loosened slightly. "But killing innocent people won't prove your point," Hannah continued, keeping her voice steady and calm. "It will only prove that fear makes us do terrible things. You're a healer, Keltar. I can see it in how you set up this clinic. You chose this neighborhood because people here need help. That's not the action of someone who wants destruction. They'll replace us," Keltar said, but his voice had lost some of its sharp edge. "Human medicine will make everything we know obsolete." "No, it won't." Hannah took another step closer. She was within 5 feet of him now. "Human medicine and Valtorian medicine are different tools. Sometimes you need a hammer. Sometimes you need a precision laser. The Emperor survived because I used crude methods quickly, but he's recovering now because your people's advanced technology is repairing the damage. We need both approaches." Dreth and his guards had fanned out around the room, but they held their fire. They could see what Hannah was doing. Torvik said humans would destroy everything. Keltar whispered. Torvik was afraid too. Fear makes us see enemies everywhere. Hannah extended her hand slowly. "Give me the device." Let's prove that healers from both our worlds can work together instead of against each other. Please." For a long moment, Keltar just stared at her outstretched hand. Then his shoulders sagged in defeat. He handed over the aerosol device carefully. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. "I'm so sorry." Dreth moved in immediately, securing Keltar with restraints. But his touch was gentle, not rough. Even the guard captain could see that this was a broken person, not a monster. Hannah examined the device. It was fully armed and would have killed dozens of people if triggered. Her hand shook slightly as she carefully disarmed it. "Well done, Dr. Kim," Dreth said quietly. "I would have just shot him." "Sometimes talking is better than shooting," Hannah replied, "though I'm glad you were ready in case talking didn't work." 3 days later, Hannah stood in the grand ceremonial hall once again. But this time she wasn't holding a mop. She wore formal diplomatic attire, and the hall was filled with dignitaries from across the galaxy. Emperor Thrall's Eyes III sat on his throne, fully recovered, with Princess Velana standing beside him. "Dr. Hannah Kim," the Emperor's voice boomed across the hall. "You saved my life when all our advanced technology failed. You saved my guards, my daughter, and my physicians. You even saved one of the conspirators who tried to kill me. You have shown us the true meaning of being a healer." The Emperor stood and descended from his throne. In his hands, he carried an ornate medal on a golden chain. "We have been fools," he continued. "We saw humans as curiosities, survivors from a brutal world. We did not see you as masters of that brutal world. We assumed our advanced technology made us superior. We forgot that sometimes the simplest solution is the best solution." He placed a medal around Hannah's neck. It was heavy and warm against her chest. "I hereby offer you the position of Chief Imperial Physician, with full authority over all medical operations in the palace." The hall erupted in applause, but Hannah raised her hand for quiet. "Your Majesty, I'm deeply honored," she said, "but I must respectfully decline." Gasps echoed through the hall. The Emperor raised an eyebrow in surprise. "I'm a field medic at heart," Hannah explained. "I go where I'm needed most, not where I'm most comfortable. What I would like instead is to help establish a joint Earth-Valtorian medical exchange program. Let our doctors learn from each other. Let us share knowledge instead of competing over whose methods are better." Emperor Thrall's Eyes studied her face for a moment, then smiled. It was the first time Hannah had seen a Valtorian smile with genuine warmth. "A wise suggestion, Dr. Kim. Consider approved immediately." He turned to address the assembled crowd. "From this day forward, human physicians will be welcomed as equals in all Imperial medical facilities. We will learn from each other, combining the best of both our worlds." More applause filled the hall. Hannah could see Saren and several other young Valtorian physicians nodding enthusiastically. Even some of the older doctors looked intrigued rather than threatened. Captain Dreth approached her after the ceremony ended. "I called you just a human," he said quietly. "I understand now that there is no just about humanity. You are small but mighty. You are technologically primitive but incredibly effective. You are, in your own way, perfectly adapted for survival. We learned a long time ago that survival isn't about being the strongest or the smartest," Hannah replied. "It's about adapting, improvising, and never giving up. That's why we're here among the stars. That's why we'll stay here." Princess Velana joined them, holding a data tablet. "Your Earth intelligence wants you to check in. Something about a new assignment." Hannah laughed. "Of course they do. The galaxy never stops needing people who can handle emergencies. Will you miss being invisible?" Velana asked with a slight smile. "No more pretending to be just a cleaner?" "Honestly, a little bit," Hannah admitted. "People say interesting things when they think you're not important enough to notice. But I think I'll enjoy not having to hide what I can do even more." That evening, Hannah returned to her quarters and changed out of her formal diplomatic clothes. She put on comfortable casual wear and packed her medical bag. It was now officially sanctioned and marked with both Earth and Valtorian medical symbols. Her communication device chimed. A message from Earth Command appeared on the screen. "Excellent work, Agent Kim. The Valtorian Alliance is stronger than ever. New assignment details attached. Medical crisis on the mining colony of Rigel 7. They specifically requested you by name. Transport leaves in 4 hours. Hannah smiled and grabbed her bag. Somewhere in the palace below, the Volturians were probably having long meetings about medical policy and cultural exchange. That was important work. But it wasn't her work. Her work was simpler. Someone, somewhere, needed a doctor who wouldn't give up. Someone needed a healer who knew that sometimes you had to fight death with everything you had, technology, and training be damned. She headed for the transport station, walking past the ceremonial hall one last time. Through the windows, she could see the palace cleaning staff at work. The new human cleaner, a young man named Juno, waved at her as she passed. Hannah waved back. Maybe one day Juno would have his own emergency to handle, his own moment to prove what humans could do.